Oh, man. Ladies and gentlemen, on Holla Ballers, welcome to our little review here of Little Nightmares 3. Obviously, maybe not that obvious, I'm a huge fan of the Little Nightmares franchise. I have the display on my wall representing Little Nightmares. As soon as this came out, Little Nightmares 1, its DLC, Little Nightmares 2, I had a blast with all of them. Really loved the world they built, the ambiguity, the creepiness, the eeriness, everything about it that led to a sort of story ending that you could piece together, given the clues and everything else that was going on. However, for the second time in a row, the game that I have left, this has been out for a little while, as had Silent Hill F, and I saved it up for now to have like a horror week. I was just so excited for both of them because I'm fans of both franchises. I was left, unfortunately, disappointed with what happened here. Now, there's a lot of internal issues that happened with Little Nightmares' dev team. In fact, they've split off, and there's multiple games coming out made by those people that are going to be in a similar vein of Little Nightmares, but they can't use the IP. So they had a lot of internal issues, and it's not surprising once you see the product that was delivered with Little Nightmares 3. Let's go with the first controversy. It's very expensive compared to the first couple of games. People were very shocked to see that suddenly the price had increased by at least $10, right? Compared to what they were used to. And then they kind of did the It Takes Two angle of like, well, this one is co-op and your friend can play for free. So essentially, if you could think about it in gymnastic terms of being half price because you get to play it with someone else, although you can play it solo, so you still have to pay the full price for that, we've built a co-op game. So like Unravel or something like that. So you can have fun with your friend in this one. Okay. Now, why is it disappointing? Because I got an interesting question from our business manager. He's like, as somebody who's not played any of the Little Nightmares games, on the surface from what I saw, it looks the same. So I'm unsure as to why this one is so disappointing when it kind of just looks like the other two. Like, it looks like they've hit the same beats. Good question. So we're going to go through that today. There's two major flaws with this, and then there's a bunch of other ones that have caused this to have the reviews it's had. I was skeptical going in because it was reviewed not well, but I want to find out for myself and see if, what's going on. So I go in as unbiased as I can. I'll take it as is, and very regularly a game that is like, oh, this game is rubbish, we'll play it, and we're like, actually, this is fine. Like, it's a decent game, right? That happens a lot. Okay, so Little Nightmares 3. I played with Bex, a member of our team. Many of our live viewers will know who Bex is. She's wonderful at storytelling. She does a lot of writing, and especially like piecing together bits and bobs. Loves co-op games, plays them regularly with members of the community. She's our community manager, and just has a blast with all that stuff. And she's got a great personality, so it made a lot of sense to play with Bex. Here's the thing. Let's start with problem number one, because it actually leads to probably the problems that we're going to talk about in some respect later. That it's co-op. It should never have been co-op. Ever. It should never have been co-op. Because the thing with Little Nightmares is although it's in the horror genre, it's not like a Phasmophobia or, you know, a jump scare horror and creepy ghosts and all that. Things that actually give people fright. That's not what they are. What they are is spooky, eerie, ethereal, tense. That's what you were looking for. Like the slow burning embers that build to some sort of payoff, whether it be the reveal of 6 or the actual consumption of gnomes and things like that. You're just like, Jesus, especially given what you've been through, that kind of in the actions were very carefully placed in the first couple of games in order to depict the desperation of the characters that you were playing at the time. When you do co-op and it's more puzzle focused, that goes out of the window entirely. It just disappears because you're chit-chatting as you would do when playing with a friend. And so all that tension that should build up in these kind of games just goes away. It's gone. It's not there. You're not getting that tension because you're doing various other things while you're moving around. And Little Nightmares 3 contains more connecting rooms of nothing than I've ever experienced in these games. There are quite long periods of not doing anything other than sort of moving from A to B. And it's a shame because the art team that builds these worlds has knocked it out of the park. They have done a tremendous job. The animation, the world building, the detail that's been put into it is gorgeous. What's not there, though, is a cohesive atmosphere and feeling, or even a cohesive story about what is going on, because this one is genuinely just somebody having nightmares. In fact, that's revealed very quickly. So instead of having, if you think about Little Nightmares 2, where it was the TVs that were dragging you in and all the people watching them, and that creepy atmosphere of seeing all these living creatures just staring at static and odd messages and things like that. They're like, what is going on here? You have that feeling of what is going on here. This time around, what you have is a series of set pieces that are kind of freaky for the sake of being freaky. Like, you can definitely read into the intentions that are going on here. There's definite references to capitalism. There's definitely references to abuse. We talk about the asylum, where the big monster of the area is like a male with an old man with extremely long, creepy arms, giving you this like Mr. Tickle vibe. Like, there's vibes there of like child abuse that's going on here. So that's there. But when you have it sort of like separated and then that bit is done, and it's very segmented, there's no through line that's happening here. Like, you start in a desert, so it's a giant baby doll in the desert. Freaky, weird, sure. But then that's done. And now we're going to transfer over to here, where there's something entirely new. And we're going to deal with a man with a ventriloquist puppet. And it's like, oh, okay, that's done. Forget about that for now, because now we're going to do this. And then they try and tie it together later on with, like, it's an imaginary friend who's giving them support. So those elements are there, but they're so disconnected from each other that the through line through the game just doesn't land. And then all the tension is gone as well. So what you're left with is a kind of basic puzzle game. That's what you end up with when you're playing co-op. Now, again, you can play it solo, where some people say you got a better experience, especially because of the second major issue. The second major issue is, I don't think enough QA and playtesting was done at all with their puzzle sequences when played in co-op. It seems to have been done with the single player in mind, using twin stick and whatever to control both characters. And then the co-op element came in, and it kind of feels, I have no proof, that it was like, well, it works in single player, so as long as the other person can control the other character, then it's fine. And it's not fine. In fact, it leads to the utter dismantling of this game at a basic level. Because what they've ended up doing is creating triggers for what are supposed to be tense sequences in the game, chase sequences, things like that are activated by the character that's kind of first there. But that's not how the game works. Often, in order to enter these areas that these sequences are going to take place in, you usually have to push through a slit, or one person has to open a door or hold a lever, which means they're stuck in an animation that is going to take several seconds longer than the other person needs to get on with what happens next. And you can't pause it either. We tried several times to, like, if I just don't go in, does this work? But the trigger is based off opening the door. So that happens regardless, and alarms will go off and things like that. So you have to go, and that just means that somebody's like 4 or 5 seconds behind. And the result of this is that you have to play in co-op with absolute precision, because there's no leeway at all for any sort of mistake or bumbling. And the only way you can actually do this is by replaying the section multiple times. And I'm talking, in some cases, maybe 10 or 11 times. Now, obviously, some people have, some people will be like, we know what's going. Maybe we saw a video. What you cannot do in nearly all occasions is react to what's happening, right? So you'll be walking into a corridor and suddenly something happens and you have to go a very specific way and you have to sprint and run there. They'll catch you almost immediately. And you're like, oh, okay, so we have to now come back here. And we dubbed this midway through the gameplay of, this is not Little Nightmares, this is Trial and Error Nightmares, because the solutions to some of the puzzles are really ambiguous. And that's where you end up playing it a lot of times. Like, sometimes you have to just wait around for like a couple of minutes and the situation will naturally resolve itself. Although there's things in the room that clearly indicate that maybe you should go and hide there. Maybe you should move to this area. But often you have maybe less than a second or two to see this environment, because it's like the next room over. and then try and guess at what we're supposed to do in that room. Now, you talk about tension removal. At the point you actually succeed at some of these puzzles by playing perfectly, and I mean you have to nail it. You have to absolutely nail it in co-op. Is that you're essentially like on your 4th or 5th playthrough of the game, right? And anybody who's ever played a video game more than once will know that a lot of the tension and the surprise is gone at that point because you already know what's going to happen. And therefore, what are we like surprised or shocked by in any way, shape, or form? And it just completely decimates the idea of what this game is supposed to be. Because now it's just become a sort of tight puzzler. Almost a Super Meat Boy, right? Do you get what I mean? Because there's platforming and all those kind of things. It's kind of devolved into something very far away from what it's supposed to be, which is a tension riser. And I don't know why they've decided to do this, because it's unavoidable in many, many occasions. And this led to several chase sequences where we were just doing it over and over again because it's like, okay, we need to go. I mean, literally, in certain cases, it was like, right, we go through this door. Then we need to take a tight line diagonally to the right because we know the door is down to the right because we've done this several times. Then we need to curve around here and make sure you avoid this sticky out piece of environment. We're going into detail here that just makes no sense in this world, into this type of game. And it kills any sort of feeling or immersion into the game because now you're just doing a very awkward, and I mean awkward, puzzle game. Now, there are a couple of chase sequences in the other ones that were reasonably tight, but often you have to redo it once. Like, you might get caught at the end. Okay, now I know what's going on. And sure, that was also a little frustrating, but because it happens so rarely, it wasn't that big of a deal. This one, it happens a lot. It happens so regularly. It's very, very frustrating. And it actually leads to frustration where you then start making mistakes later on that you didn't make before because you're trying to find the tightest, closest line there. And then we get to the point that the game has a lot of bugs that are known and are on the forums. Like, people checked, like, this is a known bug. And such as puzzles just stop working. Like, they don't work anymore. Like, what should be the solution, and you figured that out, isn't working. But because you don't know of the bug, you're looking for something else. You're like, oh, I would expect there was a trolley puzzle. Very simple trolley puzzle where one person controls a lever, puts the other person on a trolley, and the lever moves it left to right. And there's a steam valve in the middle. Okay, so I've done this a million times in other co-op games, is I wait for the steam to go away, and then I turn the lever, and my partner goes across, and then sure enough, there's another lever on the other side. Oh, so that lever must control the trolley to move it back to then the other person pulls me across. We tried for like 5 minutes and the lever didn't do anything. It's interactable. We can lean on it, but it's not doing it. So we're like, well, that can't be the solution then. So what is the solution then? Maybe I put this lever in, and then you start doing all these alternative things. No, it's just broken. And you just have to kill yourselves and do it again. And now it works. And this happened regularly throughout the game. And it's really unfortunate because you're just like, why is this a thing even now? This game has been out. These are known bugs that have happened regularly. And the game has not exactly been out a week. Like, why has this not been rectified in some way? Why are you making people do a puzzle game where your puzzles don't work? Right? Just very, very, very frustrating to play through. And it just creates a sour taste in your mouth for this whole game. If I was to summarize it, I've got a quote here from Bex that I'm going to read because she was she was very unhappy because it was one of the first times we'd done a one-on-one co-op together. And she felt very like, this is not the experience I wanted, despite the fact we had fun together, as you would do in a co-op game, right? Similar to MMOs, playing with friends doesn't super matter if the game's not that great. You're going to have fun regardless. But very frustrated that the game wasn't also great. My summary is, what a sad, sad, sad state of a franchise I love. This reminds me a lot of Dead Space 3, which was they took this concept that was carefully and delicately worked on, that seemingly had passion behind it and thoughts and ideas. And then we got to Dead Space 3, which was just like a cash-in. It was like, let's just use the IP name. We're probably not going to make another game unless it sells really well. And we'll just put as much crap into it as possible. It had like mission boards that just popped up at the most obnoxious times, microtransactions, costumes, which are now here in this one as well. It's like, buy the costumes. In fact, booting the game up is a hell of a frustrating experience. Because it's constantly telling you this menu, unskippable notifications all the way through. And then it's like, you can buy more costumes for your characters. And you're like, dude, like, this is not my vibe at all. And it always makes me so sad to see something you really like that was done with a lot of passion, was unique, because Little Nightmares was an extremely unique franchise, just destroyed. Like, I don't care about this world anymore. I'm not interested. I will say this, we did not finish the game. It's longer than the originals. And the reason we didn't finish is because of how much we had to redo various sections, because I think we're on the last boss. I think we're about 2 minutes from finishing the game, but I had to leave to pick up my son. And it's just like, it throws TVs at you, but you don't know where to stand in the room to avoid these TVs, because they just come sliding down and you can't possibly prepare for them happening. And so it's a case of do it over and over again. There's no way you can one-shot these things without just literal luck, because you have to know these positions. And if you're out of position, you can't avoid it once it happens, as you get hit and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. And you're like, okay, now we stand here in this area because the TVs won't hit us. Now we have to wait for this floor to collapse on the left side of the screen, so we have to stay on the right side of the screen, and you have to trial and error your way through it to get to the end. And it's like, well, where's the tension in this? Why am I... And what are we doing here? Like, what's the point? Where's the thrill? Where's the spook? Where's the eerie? Where's the atmosphere? All gone. Bex said this. She said, I don't know if you want my take on the game, but I don't recommend it unless you are somebody who enjoys games that need exact precision and timing to complete. There is often solutions to puzzles that are unintuitive or boring, like waiting for a woman to move. The story is very basic and just left untold. The art style is great, but it borrows the title and art style from the previous games and left any kind of polish behind it. It's buggy, frustrating, and doesn't nearly warrant the price. The TLDR is, do not buy this game. Even if it's on sale, there are just much better games out there to play, including Little Nightmares 1 and 2. I will put those out there as well. Yeah, a disappointing game. I'm really gutted, man. You can probably tell. I'm just so like, Silent Hill didn't do it for me. This one is just like another franchise that I enjoyed so much. Is just like, it feels like a cash-in. They added a premium on top. They made it co-op to try and get more people in, selling costumes, all that kind of stuff. And it just lacks polish. It lacks any sort of tension, any sort of atmosphere. And it just has a very bizarre, unfinished feel to it that needed another 6 months in the oven to get there. But seemingly, since it's been released and not received very well, is they're just kind of leaving it as is. I'll look forward to see, and I will try, what the team that left the Little Nightmares 3 team has come up with themselves. Because maybe they'll be like, yeah, this is what we wanted to build before maybe our corporate overlords got in and started trying to cash in on it. And see what's happened there. And I hope this doesn't happen with other games that are in a similar position, namely Subnautica 2. Very excited for Subnautica 2. But their problems are kind of in a similar vein of what's happening internally. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But Little Nightmares 3, thumbs down. This is another D-tier game for me. On a streak of D-tiers. We're going to try Tormented Souls next. This has been very highly praised. A classic RE style. We had fun with the first one. So we'll see how that goes. If not, onwards to bigger and better things. Because we're having fun on the stream regardless. It's just a shame about the game. All right. See you again. Bye-bye.